On today's episode, longtime arch rival Corey Perry has signed a one-year deal with the Blackhawks after being acquired from the Lightning yesterday. I'll get into why Perry is actually a good fit for Chicago, as well as some updates ahead of free agency tomorrow. All that and plenty more right here on Locked On Blackhawks.
You're Locked On Blackhawks, your daily podcast on the Chicago Blackhawks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everyone? Welcome on in to another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today is Friday, June 30th. I'm your host, Jack Bushman. Find me out on Twitter at JackBushman2, or you could also go and check out my Strictly Blackhawks account at Talkin' Hockey for all the latest Blackhawks news and updates. Also, if you're new to the channel, make sure to go and hit that subscribe button for me, as I'm currently on the road to 1,000 subscribers. If you're listening to the audio version of this, make sure you're following along there as well. It's also 100% free, which sounds like a pretty good bargain if you ask me. And also that way you can get the latest episode as soon as it comes out each and every day. I also wanted to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. The next time that you need parts and accessories for your vehicle, then make sure to head on over to eBay Motors. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. All right, good afternoon, everyone. As always, thank you all for joining me on another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, your one-stop shop for all things Chicago Blackhawks. And thank you all for making the show your very first listen here to start off your day. I hope everyone's Friday is treating them well so far up to this point, or whenever you're tuning into this show throughout your weekend. I hope it's going lovely for you. Hope you're enjoying some of the hot and warm weather that we've been having in the Chicagoland area throughout this kind of 4th of July weekend. It's a little awkwardly placed here this year. I believe the 4th of July is on Tuesday, but I know I'm going to be celebrating this weekend, might even go for a cold swim out in Lake Michigan, but I hope everyone is enjoying their weekend so far as well. Yesterday, of course, was day 2 of the 2023 NHL draft down in Nashville, Tennessee. And not only did we see the Blackhawks make a lot of selections, of course, in rounds 2 through 7, which, by the way, I will have a full breakdown on all of those picks, either uploaded later on today or at the latest early on Saturday morning. I promise I'll be breaking down each of those picks, Blackhawks fans. The grind doesn't stop, baby. It's quite the busy time right now for yours truly over here. Please go and smash the like button if you could for all the work that I've been putting in. I would greatly appreciate it. Free agency, of course, is right around the corner, so probably going to be a busy weekend as well. But obviously we saw the Blackhawks, make a lot of second-round picks. Some interesting selections in the later rounds as Kyle Davidson continues to go after size. But we also saw the Blackhawks make 3 separate trades throughout day 2 as well. And 2 of them involved receiving veteran players from a couple of Eastern Conference teams. And the one that I wanted to start off today's show with was probably the more notable of the 2. And that was the Hawks acquiring 38-year-old forward Corey Perry from the Tampa Bay Lightning in exchange for a 2024 7th round pick. And right off the bat, I'll say why it only cost the Blackhawks a 7th round pick in order to land Corey Perry before I go into a full breakdown here, is because the Hawks are well aware as anyone of the Tampa Bay Lightning's salary cap situation that they're in. In fact, Baribois, their general manager, recently spoke out about how he was aware this was going to be their most challenging year in terms of salary cap structure. And the Blackhawks knew that the Lightning weren't going to be able to bring back Corey Perry. They obviously had no leverage there in trade discussions. And also very similar to what we saw with Nick Foligno earlier on in the week, Perry also was set to become an unrestricted free agent on July 1st. However, also similar to Nick Foligno, we did hear Kyle Davidson immediately after the trade say in a presser that, their hopes was that they were going to be able to sign Perry and convince him to sign with the Blackhawks, despite clearly wanting to go after a Stanley Cup at this point in his career based on the teams that he's played with for these last few seasons, the Dallas Stars, the last 2 years spent with the Tampa Bay Lightning. It was going to be a little bit tough to get Corey Perry to sign to that deal. But just like we saw with Nick Foligno as well, less than 24 hours after Davidson expressed his desire to sign Corey Perry, like we saw with Nick Foligno, he was able to get the deal done. As late last night, Pierre LeBrun put out on Twitter that the Blackhawks were signing Perry to a 1-year, $4 million contract with the Blackhawks. Does that sound familiar to anyone out there? I'm probably beginning to sound like a broken record over here because that was the exact same deal that we saw Nick Foligno sign on Monday, I believe it was. So longtime arch nemesis of many Blackhawks fans, and Corey Perry will now be joining forces with the Hawks. I know that's going to make for quite an interesting reaction and already has among a lot of Blackhawks fans. I think the funniest comment that I saw personally, someone responded to my tweet about the Blackhawks signing Perry saying, has an NHL franchise ever paid someone to jump off a bridge before? And I thought it was just absolutely hilarious. By the way, with the Corey Perry signing, I had to throw up my number 10 Perry Ducks jersey that I don't really know why I got that because I never was like the biggest fan of Corey Perry. And obviously he was an agitator and a thorn in the side and just a pain in the ass to play against. And with the Blackhawks going up against the Ducks there in 2015, obviously there's been a lot of hate for Corey Perry, and watching him kind of fall short in Stanley Cups has been a joy for many folks out there. And I know people are like, why did the Blackhawks, out of all the free agents out there, out of everyone, they had to go and get Corey Perry? But personally, throwing all the bias aside, I think this is a really smart move for the Chicago Blackhawks to make. And first, I can just basically copy and paste what I said about Nick Foligno right now, so I'm not going to go over it too much. But obviously, a $4 million contract for Corey Perry isn't what he should actually be making. But considering the situation, Perry wants to obviously win a Stanley Cup at this point in his career. Same with Nick Foligno. The clock's ticking for those guys to go and do that. It was going to take a pretty lucrative offer to convince them to stay in Chicago. And also, Perry gets a nice little raise for signing just a 1-year deal, which is clearly what Kyle Davidson's wanted to do this entire offseason. He hasn't wanted to give out any term. And this also aids in the Blackhawks reaching the salary cap floor, which prior to any of their deals on day 2 of the draft, they were still just about $6 million short of that number. So giving Corey Perry a hefty raise is 100% going to help, and what was needed in order to convince him to sign here. Also, the Blackhawks, with that being a 1-year deal, it's very flippable at the trade deadline. They can retain half the salary to make him a little bit more suitable and a little bit more enticing for another team out there. And with all the history that Corey Perry has, I mean, an experienced NHL veteran that's played really meaningful hockey. I mean, he played in 3 Stanley Cups in a row prior to this season, been on a lot of successful NHL clubs, and also just plays the style that you want of postseason hockey. He's going to be very enticing at the deadline. Might not get the biggest return, but it's still another free asset potentially for the Chicago Blackhawks. And I also think, look, I know there's a lot of opinions out there about Corey Perry, but as far as his teammates are concerned, everywhere this guy's been, he's been raved about by his teammates as being such a good guy and a guy you want in your corner and you want out there on your side. I also think he provides that grit, that net front presence, also another veteran to aid in the development of all these guys. I think for many different reasons, it's a smart fit. And also, Corey Perry has ties with Blackhawks head coach Luke Richardson, going back to when Richardson was an assistant with the Montreal Canadiens. And he really liked how Perry helped develop some of the youngsters there. So I think it's just a fit that makes a lot of sense. And obviously Richardson wouldn't be bringing in or wouldn't allow Kyle Davidson to go and get a player like Corey Perry if he didn't think it was going to be beneficial for the Blackhawks in many different ways. So I know there's a lot of hate out there for Corey Perry, but this actually does make a lot of sense. And there's also people saying, well, why are we adding a 38-year-old veteran? To be fair, Corey Perry isn't like most 38-year-olds at the NHL level. Sure, his best offensive days have passed him up, and he's no longer the point per game guy or 30, 40 goal scorer that he used to be, but he's still capable of playing some pretty good hockey, and he's also been remarkably durable for being at this stage in his career. He played in 81 games for the Lightning this past season, 12 goals, 13 assists for 25 points. And the year prior to that, he was a 40-point guy for the Lightning, 19 goals and 21 assists, played all 82 games. So he's only missed one game over the last 2 years. And also, if you look at his analytics, still at this stage of his career, he's putting up positive numbers. And I know you can spin that as to, oh, well, he's been playing for some of the better teams and, playing with the Lightning. They're obviously a team that drives possession in their favor a lot. Well, Corey Perry, it's not like he had an offensive-minded role there and wasn't really getting top 6 minutes all the time. No. So even in a bottom six, less offensive-minded role, he still found a way to make an impact offensively while being the same pesty self that he's always been throughout his entire career. That's made so many people hate him. So I really do feel like this is going to be a Max Domi situation all over again for us Blackhawks fans, right? And I was in the same boat as anyone. Like I was really not thrilled when the Blackhawks signed Max Domi because it seemed like anytime they played against him, he was doing something over the top and just, pardon my language, which is kind of acting like a dick out there. And I wasn't thrilled by the signing, as a lot of people, same as a lot of people, I should say. But by the time it was over, we all absolutely had fallen in love for Max Domi. And it seems unlikely now, but there's still people preaching for him to come back. I really feel like that's going to be the same with Corey Perry here in Chicago. Just one of those guys you absolutely hate to play against, but love to have on your team, love to have in your corner. I think Blackhawks fans, I know it's going to be hard and there probably will be people who can never get to that point, but I really do think some Blackhawks fans are going to learn to love Corey Perry because of what he's going to be able to provide. And also it's probably only going to be a 50-55 game stint. Okay. We can suck it up for that stretch because he's likely to get flipped at the deadline. He wants to be going to a contender and competing for a Stanley Cup. The Blackhawks can give him a good amount of money and they can also go and flip him to a team that has a better chance of winning it all there at the deadline. So for many different reasons, this was a smart addition by Kyle Davidson. I know it's not a popular opinion, but I really think Corey Perry in this signing could turn into another Max Domi situation that we saw from last year. All right, Hawks fans, coming up in just a moment, I will get into the other trade that we saw Kyle Davidson made yesterday, which involved forward Josh Bailey from the New York Islanders. But first, I need to talk to you all about AG1, which is something that I use every single morning because with just one scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, probiotics, and more to help you start your day. And this special blend of ingredients is truly incredible. It'll support your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, your recovery, your focus, and even your aging. And Athletic Greens has over 7,000 five-star reviews and is recommended by both health experts and professional athletes. Plus, it'll cost you less than $3 per day, which is just such a cheap and easy way to invest in both your health and your body. And to make it easy for all of you out there, Athletic Greens is going to give away 5 free travel packs and a 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D. All you have to do is go and visit athleticgreens.com/NHL network. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/NHL network to take ownership over your health and to pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. All right, we're back here on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Real quick, if you're new to the channel and haven't done so already, please make sure to go and hit that subscribe button as I'm on the road to 1,000 subscribers right now. Also, if you're a consistent listener of the show and you're finding this on an audio platform, go and leave me a review, preferably a positive one, because those are always great. And also make sure to follow Locked On Blackhawks on Instagram as well to have a chance to win a giveaway once I do reach 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. I'll be telling y'all a little bit more about that prior to segment 3. But getting into segment 2 on the show, let's talk about the first move that we saw the Blackhawks make actually ahead of day 2 of the 2023 NHL draft, which was acquiring forward Josh Bailey from the New York Islanders, along with a 2026 second-round pick in exchange for our boy, Future Considerations, who just can't seem to find a home anywhere. Everyone just keeps passing on Future Considerations. He's going to get a chance one of these days. He's going to wind up being a good player for somebody. I could see Future Considerations being another Jonathan Marchessault situation for another club who's willing to give him an opportunity out there. But in all seriousness, Obviously, this feels like another no-brainer win for GM Kyle Davidson, considering he didn't give up or he gave up literally nothing. And it just kind of reminded me of a similar situation to the Nikita Zaitsev trade that we saw the Blackhawks make with the Ottawa Senators back at the 2023 NHL trade deadline, where they got a free second and a free fourth round pick for taking on Nikita Zaitsev's dreadful deal. The only difference here is that unlike Zaitsev, which I'm still a little bit confused about, the Blackhawks already made the decision that they're going to be buying out forward Josh Bailey, 33, who tallied 25 points, 8 goals, and 17 assists in 64 games for the Islanders last year. Spent his entire 15-year career there in New York. The Blackhawks, less than an hour after acquiring Josh Bailey from the Islanders, said, nope, not going to be part of the future. We're going to buy him out. So what a tenure it was for Josh Bailey here in Chicago. I mean, I can't wait for the banner ceremony and the one last shift in years to come. Another Blackhawks legend that has come in through here. But the Blackhawks, kind of an interesting decision. I originally thought, and this was prior to them getting Corey Perry. So I thought, just another veteran addition here, someone that will be in the bottom six. But yeah, they made the quick decision to buy out Bailey, which according to Davidson, they just said they simply didn't see a spot or a role for Josh Bailey on this roster moving forward, which to me kind of foreshadows the quiet first day of free agency that it sounds like the Chicago Blackhawks are going to have. I'll touch more on that in segment 3. But by making the decision to buy out Josh Bailey, it also is going to save the Blackhawks just over $1 million in the process, because instead of having his $5 million cap hit on the books for just this season, they're going to have 2.6 with the buyout, and then they'll have an additional 1.16 million next year, which that, if you do some quick math, it's going to save the Blackhawks just about $1.1 million. And while, next year could be a different situation for the Blackhawks, maybe they want to use a little bit more of that money and go and spend in free agency and start looking a little bit more competitive. $1 million isn't really going to hold them back in any way, shape, or form. So yeah, they just didn't see a role for Bailey. It saves them money in the process. And I guess most importantly, now that Bailey's been bought out, they get a free 2026, right? Yeah, 2026 second round pick from the Islanders, which I talked about a little bit earlier too. The Blackhawks general manager Kyle Davidson has really wanted to space out all of his draft picks to kind of just give more consistency year after year after year. And I think it's just an absolutely genius idea, because as I was describing to one of my buddies this morning, Connor Bedard is only going to get better year after year after year. And the Blackhawks are continuously going to be adding pieces and adding talent around him with all of the money that they have, and also with the numerous amount of draft picks that they're going to be making for these next few seasons. So looking ahead to what the Blackhawks have in their bag at this moment in the 2024 NHL draft, they also have 2 first-round picks, courtesy of the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Brandon Hagel trade, which is looking really good now that you can implant Oliver Moore into the picture with the 19th overall pick, which was just such a steal. And they have 3 second-round picks in next year's draft as well. In 2025, another 2 first-round picks, one coming from the Toronto Maple Leafs as part of the Jake McCabe deal, along with 2 seconds. And then in 2026, they have their own first-round pick at the moment and 3 more second-round selections. So Kyle Davidson just continues to stockpile this great draft capital. It didn't cost them anything, and they wind up saving $1 million in the process. Sure, there's some money on the books next year, not really going to have much of an effect. So this, again, in all ways, shape, or form, to me, is another no-brainer win for GM Kyle Davidson. All right, folks, coming up in just a minute here before I wrap things up, I'll get into some final UFA and RFA updates from Kyle Davidson ahead of July 1st tomorrow. All right, before I wrap up today's show, I do want to let you all know about the giveaway that I am doing here on Locked On Blackhawks. Once I reach 1,000 subscribers, and quite honestly, with the way the numbers have been jumping up recently, probably going to happen this weekend. Huge shout out to everyone and all the supporters out there. Thank you so much for continuously listening and watching the show. I wouldn't be doing it here without you. And I promise I'll continue to work hard throughout the summer to give all of you constant Blackhawks news and updates. But for those of you who are not entered into the giveaway at this point, all you have to do is subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube. You got to follow Locked On Blackhawks on Instagram and just send me a quick DM at Locked On Blackhawks of a screenshot that shows you're subscribed to the channel. I've had numerous people do it already. It's very easy. And when you do enter, you'll have a chance to win a bunch of cool Blackhawks, or I guess your choice of some cool Blackhawk stuff. I've posted pictures on the Instagram channel of some of the stuff that I'm going to be giving away. I do have one more thing that I'm going to add as well, and the lucky winner will be able to select one item of their choosing. So make sure to go and do that real quick to join the channel and also to have a chance to win some cool free Blackhawks stuff. All right. Following the conclusion of the 2023 NHL draft, Blackhawks general manager Kyle Davidson sat down and spoke with the media at a presser in Nashville and kind of just was giving his feelings of the draft, shared his sort of recap of everything, and also provided a little bit of a preview of what we could be seeing the Blackhawks do with free agency starting tomorrow. First and foremost, Davidson did provide us an update, one final update regarding all of the restricted free agents and the unrestricted free agents that the Blackhawks have on their books. We already knew that Anders Bjork wasn't going to be receiving a qualifying offer. We found out a couple of days ago, neither will defenseman Caleb Jones. And Davidson said it was just a really hard decision, which I expected it was going to be. There was a lot to like from Caleb Jones. I thought he looked really good in the second half on the top pairing with Seth. But ultimately, it just sounded like Davidson recognized how much of an opportunity the front office wants to be giving to players like Alex Vlasic, Isaac Phillips, Wyatt Kaiser, Kevin Korchinski, Ethan Del Mastro, and Nolan Allen, both left-handed defensemen, are expected to go pro next season as well. So looking ahead, there just isn't a whole lot of room for someone like Caleb Jones. So they ultimately decided not to give him a QO. But Davidson spoke out and said that none of them are going to be receiving a qualifying offer except for Philip Kurashev. They're still working on something. The hope is that the two sides are going to be able to reach a deal. All indications point towards that happening. So don't worry. Sounds like Philip Kurashev is going to be coming back, but doesn't sound like anyone else will. Andreas Englund is gone. This basically confirmed only that we knew most of this already, but Austin Wagner, someone who the Blackhawks also acquired for our boy future considerations, is not going to be getting a QO as well. And same with Andreas Englund and some of the other depth guys in the AHL. And it also kind of seems like, based on the move that the Blackhawks made, getting Corey Perry to sign a one-year deal, it just seems like there's not going to be a whole lot going on for the Blackhawks in free agency. And Kyle Davidson spoke on that. He said most of the heavy lifting at this point in time has been done. And I kind of was looking at the Blackhawks roster at this point in time, and I just don't see any more, additions happening to the forward group. I know there are a lot of people out there, wanting them to sign JT Compher, Max Domi, Vladimir Tarasenko is another name that's been brought up in rumors. Same with Ryan O'Reilly. I just don't see a spot for those guys because, quite honestly, right now, like Mackenzie Entwistle, Reese Johnson, Colin Blackwell, Boris Kachuk, those guys don't even really have a spot. And adding someone to that just doesn't feel very likely, in my opinion. So as far as what we could see from the Blackhawks and the moves they make on day one, I don't really see them doing much at the forward position except adding maybe a guy that can kind of play in the NHL and the AHL, and same on defense. I think after getting rid of Ian Mitchell and Alec Regula in that deal to Boston, probably the biggest expectation that I have is the Blackhawks to give out one or two contracts to a right-handed defenseman or two that can also be on a two-way contract because they'll need them to play down in Rockford. The right side at the NHL level is kind of solidified with Seth Jones, Connor Murphy, and apparently Nikita Zaitsev's not getting bought out for whatever reason, probably because of salary cap stuff. But yeah, that's kind of my expectation of the Blackhawks in free agency. One or two right-handed defensemen, maybe one depth goalie and one depth forward. But From all accounts, it seems like it's going to be a pretty quiet free agency for the Chicago Blackhawks as we roll into July 1st tomorrow morning. All right, folks, I think that is going to wrap up Friday, June 30th episode of Locked On Blackhawks. As always, thank you all again for tuning into the show. Make sure to go and subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks right now, wherever you may listen to your podcasts, and to go and subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube. And that way you can get the latest episode as soon as it becomes available each and every day. As always, I'm your host, Jack Bushman. Find me out on Twitter at Jack Bushman2, or you could also go and check out my Strictly Blackhawks account at Talkin' Hockey for all the latest Blackhawks news and updates. So until the next episode, folks, that's going to do it here for the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.